What if the Beyblade Metal series returned in 2024? That's something I've been dreaming about for a long time now, and for a lot of you watching this video, you could probably say the same thing. It would be an absolute dream come true for the Metal series to make a comeback so many years later. Now, is it happening in 2024? Not a chance. Beyblade X is just getting started, and the Metal series is now almost 10 years removed from its last episode. And that's just the English dub. If you look at the Japanese version, which is the original, the final episode was released in 2012. So, needless to say, a Metal series comeback isn't on the cards anytime soon, but what if it was? What if years into the future we continue to regrow the Metal series fanbase, and eventually, by the 20th or the 25th anniversary of the series, maybe someone decides to do a small reboot of Metal Fight? Is that wishful thinking? For sure. I'd even call it delusion. I don't believe that's going to happen, but it sure is fun to think that it could. So, for this video, we're going to be thinking, if the Metal series eventually came back one day, or heck, if it came back tomorrow, what would it look like? Obviously, Takara Tomy and Hasbro would start rolling out the physical Beyblades again, which would be awesome, but I'm more so talking about the anime. What would a return to the Metal series anime look like 12 years later? I mean, we have 3 seasons, we have half a season of Shogun Steel, and we have a movie. This puts us in an interesting spot because the movie is arguably not even canon, and Shogun Steel was so poorly received that it got cut short. So if we were to continue this IP, where would we even start? What's a good point to pick up where we left off all those years ago? Well, for this video, I've come up with a few potential ideas for what a Metal series reboot, or I guess a spin-off, could look like, and I gotta say, some of these ideas are pretty interesting. So without further ado, let's just jump into our first idea. And by the way, this isn't in any specific order, it's just a list of ideas that I came up with. So, the first way to bring back the Metal series anime is to continue from Shogun Steel. So basically what I'm saying is, make a Shogun Steel Season 2. I can already see it, this is going to be the least popular idea of the video, because once again, Shogun Steel isn't as beloved as the first 3 seasons. And for the actual Beyblade company to take the risk of bringing back the Metal Fight series after 10 plus years, I seriously doubt that they'd start by bringing back its worst received iteration. So, continuing from Shogun Steel isn't realistic, but I sure would love to see it happen. I mean, it's no secret that Shogun Steel is worse than its predecessors, but I think a second season, or even just finishing the season that they cut short, would work wonders for the series. I mean, more episodes wouldn't make it perfect, but man, you could fix a lot of the problems of Zero G if you just gave it a few more episodes, which is what it should have gotten in the first place. Once again, it got cut short. But look, assuming they'd want to get to the 50 episode mark like previous seasons, that would mean we'd get 25 more episodes to complete the first season of Shogun Steel, and once again, this would fix so many problems. For example, my main issue with Zero G was always the main cast. They weren't bad, but they weren't great either, and that's my problem. They were just okay. And for this brand new series, you threw so many new characters at me, and I just didn't really care about any of them compared to our previous main cast. Maybe that's bias, maybe that's because we got this main cast for so much longer, but regardless, I feel that this set of characters were so underdeveloped, and for that reason, I wasn't able to attach myself to them. But if we got 25 more episodes, we could use those to seriously develop some of these characters, and suddenly, Shogun Steel would become a lot better in my opinion. Not perfect, but surely a lot better. And hey, you could even have the older characters be more involved with these new episodes, like give Kyoya an apprentice, if Ryuga's alive, involve him somehow, and maybe bring back someone like Sora who didn't have a chance to shine in the first 3 seasons, maybe make him a big part here. But yeah, that's our first option for a Metal series reboot, continuing from Shogun Steel. Let me know what you think about that one. I personally think it would be fun, but now let's move on to our second option, and I have a sneaking suspicion that this will be the most popular idea of the video. We have a Ryuga miniseries. This one would be hype for sure, and honestly, out of all the choices we have, it's maybe the most realistic. I'd argue to this day, Ryuga is still such a popular character to the point where I think people would tune in to a Ryuga miniseries even if it has been 12 years. And plus, it's a miniseries. If it flops, at least you only made a few episodes, you didn't spend a whole bunch of money, but if it succeeds, you can always just make more. It's a very low-risk situation, which is ideal if you're trying to bring back an IP from 12 years ago. And as for the miniseries itself, there's a few different ways you could take it. We could get an origin story that shows Ryuga growing up with the Dragon Clan. We could see how he met Doji. And this honestly has so much potential in itself. Like now I'm thinking about just a Dragon Clan show in general. But look, just introduce us to some really cool, really strong dragon-themed bladers, and I'd be happy. We could even have Ryuto make a cameo. Maybe he could be Ryuga's childhood friend or something like that. And let's even get a cameo from baby Sakio, because he would be a baby at this point. But hey, if we don't want to do an origin story, the miniseries could instead be based on Ryuga's adventures that we never got to see throughout the Metal series. For example, let's see more in depth how he beat the Dark Power. We got the story, but let's see a little bit more. Let's get the full story of what went down between Ryuga and Hyoma here. This scene has always interested me. And let's get some of those solo Ryuga journeys that he went on throughout Masters and Fury. I think something like that could make for a pretty solid miniseries. But if you don't like that idea either, maybe we could do a post-Metal Fury Ryuga story. This is, of course, assuming he's alive, but yeah, Ryuga survives the Nemesis fight, and we come up with a story for him during those 7 years before Shogun Steel. Either of those three options would go crazy in my opinion, and I feel like in general, a Ryuga miniseries is probably the way to go. I mean, it's gotta be the safest option in terms of business too. I feel like people would tune in for it. But yeah, I'm curious what y'all think about this one, because once again, I think this would be very exciting. So let me know your thoughts, but now we're going to move on. We're actually going to talk about two ideas at once here. So first, we have an anthology series based on the historical lore of the Metal series. And the second idea is a one-shot series where each episode focuses on a different character from the show. I grouped these two ideas together because I think they're both equally unlikely scenarios. I mean, look, for big Beyblade fans like you and me, these would be amazing to watch. But for a general audience, it's way too specific. But let's still talk about them. The anthology series would basically just be a show about certain historical events in the Metal Fight universe. For example, we could go more in depth with the first legendary Blader versus Nemesis fight. We could look at the very first Pegasus user, the first El Drago user. We could even go into the lore of Helios and Atlantis. We could see the mythological story of Perseus and Medusa, just things along those lines. There's so much potential for cool stories here, but if you're bringing back Metal Fight after 12 years, this is not the way to go. And the same goes for the one-shot idea. Once again, this idea would have every episode being dedicated to a different character, and there wouldn't be any overarching story to it. So like Nile could get an episode, maybe King could get one, Chris is a pretty good choice. I'd love to see a Sora episode or even a Ryutaro episode. That would be fun. I personally love this one-shot idea because it could help fix some of the flatter characters like Chris or Dynamis, give them some development, but it would also give us more of those really cool side characters who we didn't get to see that much, like Ryutaro or Sora. And here's a personal pick of mine, but I'd love to get an episode about Teru. I don't know why, but he's always been a side character that stuck with me. Just give us a slice of life themed episode on Teru's past, and most of all, tell us who this is. Is this his sister, his friend, his girlfriend? And whoever it is, how did she get Virgo? And why does she look just like Virgo? I mean, is she Virgo? Literally, she looks just like the Virgo avatar. Is there something deeper going on there? Probably not, but I would love to find out. But just like the anthology idea, this one is kind of as unrealistic as it gets. I mean, look, if you're bringing back an IP that ended 12 years ago, you're not going to do these niche side character stories. You'd have to do something with Jinga, Kyoya, Ryuga. So yeah, these ideas would be cool for us, but a lot of people wouldn't understand it, and it wouldn't be as popular as a Ryuga series, for instance. So let me know what you think about those ideas, but now we're going to move on to the final idea of the video, which is just extending the story from any point across the 3 seasons. What I mean by this is just pick any point from Fusion, Masters, or Fury, and just continue the story from that point. For example, show us what the main cast were up to right after Metal Fury during that 7-year time skip. Or you could even give us some episodes in between the 3 seasons. Like, I have some pretty cool ideas for something after Metal Masters, but before Metal Fury that I think could be pretty cool. The only problem with extending the story like this is you cannot break the canon timeline, which basically means you can't do anything too crazy. But honestly, if you really wanted to tell a cool story using the Metal Masters cast, for example, you could just do what the Helios movie did and just make it not really canon. That way you can tell your story, you can have these world-ending stakes, but it doesn't have to fit into the World Championships. Honestly, I could see this idea playing out, but I do think we have some better options. But yeah, that's all I've got. If you have any other ideas for a Metal Series spin-off / reboot, please let me know. In total, we came up with continuing from Shogun Steel, the Ryuga miniseries, the Anthology series, the one-shot series, and then just extending the story from a point in the first 3 seasons. So, out of all of those, let me know which one you would want to see the most. If you ask me, I'd love any of these, but it's really hard to pass up a Ryuga miniseries. But yeah, is this happening anytime soon? No chance. But one day far into the future, don't be too surprised if we get a Ryuga miniseries for the 20th or the 25th anniversary of Metal Fight. Just saying, I'm putting that out there. But until then, I'll keep on dreaming. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below what kind of videos you want to see next, and I will see you in the next video.